All right, Mr. Donny Dust, welcome to the Happy Hustle Podcast, my brother. I am super stoked to connect.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you having me on here. I'm super excited. It's going to be a good time. Thanks. Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I mean, you are an adventurer. You're an author. You're a wild man. You're a U.S. Marine, a 12-year veteran. And you're also known as the world's most famous caveman. That is such a cool title. The most professional caveman in the world. You have so many cool things to teach us happy hustlers on just how to live life in harmony with nature. And I'm excited to get into all that good stuff. But before we do, Donny, what's something interesting about yourself that not too many people know?
Yeah. I think probably one of the most interesting things is at the age of 37, I had a massive heart attack in my left anterior descending artery. I had a 99% blockage and almost died at the age of 37, which is kind of rare for folks to have, a heart attack at that age. But it was one of those things. It was a life-changing moment. It was the best day and the worst day of my life. But yeah.
Wow, man, that's powerful. And so, I mean, you say is the best day and the worst day of your life. Just kind of unpack that a little bit. What was your lens for life prior and now? I know you have a saying that I really want to dig into, which is, life is long. Talk to us a little bit about that mindset shift after that near-death experience.
Yeah. So, when my heart attack happened, I just returned from Alaska from teaching. And I was currently 6 months into a year-long training process for a super jungle ultra marathon down in Peru. It's like 245K, self-supported. And, my life was always one of adventure and experiencing hardships. And, I just kind of, sought that stuff out. That's how you kind of test yourself ultimately. And, the day I had that heart attack, I say it was the best day because it really confirmed everything that I was doing in my life prior to was good. It was okay. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I'm not a big alcohol drinker. I don't, do drugs. I live a very healthy lifestyle, but there were some things that I needed to change, which kind of gave rise to my first book, Scavenger. And the idea was to kind of scavenge those things from my past that worked well, that led me to points of success and happiness and adventure. Scavenge those things and apply them to my future going forward and feed off them. Just like every animal, everything that's ever existed, we're hunters, we're gatherers, and we're scavengers. But we're scavengers first. So I took that idea, applied it to my recovery, and then also scavenged ideas from, different cultures, concepts, peoples, and methodologies, and apply that to my recovery going forward. So one of the things that I really thought about was, life and death. And I believe a lot of people in this world are always, they're rushing through it. They're trying to make that next dollar, or they're trying to close that next deal. And if you take a moment and just kind of step back and realize that life is very, very long. I mean, it's super long. Every day, every minute, every hour, it's long. And if you can really enjoy those days and accept that it is long, you won't be in such a rush through your entire life when you're 65, 75 years old. And you look back saying, what did I do? I was in a rush to get here, and now I'm here and I'm not happy. Or, I might have $1 million house, but I miss this adventure. I miss my kids' soccer games or the lacrosse games. And for me, it was saying, all right, you know what? Life is long. Enjoy each day. Live by a few tenets, if you will, and, make it happen.
Wow. Powerful, man. I mean, and that's something that I think gets people, it gets twisted. People say life is short, enjoy what you can. You got to hustle and grind. And I definitely think that's kind of what I fell susceptible to early on in my entrepreneurial journey, which led me on this journey to become a happy hustler, which is striving for everyday fulfillment, both personally and professionally. And really being happy within the everyday hustle. And that's what I hear from you, is just like, slow down, take a breath, enjoy the journey, not just the destination. And, you mentioned some of your core tenets that you live by, and you piqued my curiosity, Donny. I want to hear about these core tenets, brother.
Yeah. Well, one of them, like right off the bat, is, I never set goals. I think goals are the ultimate evil, which the idea behind that is sometimes we fixate on the end state, and we, like you just said, we forget that journey. We forget all those individual seconds, minutes, hours, and days to get to that end state. So I say, people can have a goal, but let's say the goal is to lose 20 pounds or to make $1 million in profit in a year. Most people have a tendency of going to extreme lengths to achieve those goals. And sometimes they're, harmful to themselves or harmful to others. It really questions better judgment. And when we hyperfixate on that end state or that goal, we don't remember, and we kind of forget about those steps leading up to it. So if you want to lose, 20 pounds, it's not about losing 20 pounds. It's about the lifestyle change and creating those good habits each day, changing your diet, changing who influences your life, because, it's about your health in that aspect. So it's not the goal, it's the process to get there that we really need to focus on. So I never set goals, really. I don't say, I want to live in this house, or I want to go to this place, or I want to experience this. I think, how can I get there? I'd rather focus more on that journey than actually focusing on that goal.
Yeah. Wow. And that is definitely maybe a reverse psychology approach to achieving something, and it's also, and it's what's cool about that though, is I feel you nailed it. Like, people get so hyper fixated on the goal's outcome, and really the joy is in the journey, when you are in the trenches building your business, and not necessarily that 10-figure exit or 9-figure, whatever it is. Like, it's more about the lessons you learned along the way, and it's having integrity throughout the process, because a lot of people, I feel like, sell their soul to get the goal, and that rhymed, but wasn't intended. I like it. Sell their soul to get the goal, but the truth is, you got to have integrity throughout the entire process. And I know you're a man of integrity, and I know you're a man of discipline as well throughout the military. I'm sure you had to have both integrity and discipline. And I'm just curious, in terms of your military experience as a U.S. Marine, what would you say is your biggest takeaway from that time in the military? And again, thank you for your service, man, for
my pleasure. Thank you.
Just like, I really, out of all the branches, I was considering the Marines, and then I realized, I grew up with a dictator-esque father, and I was sick of being yelled at by men, so I didn't want to join. but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I respect you a lot for joining and doing it. But what would you say is the biggest takeaway throughout that process?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways in the process would be just flexibility. And not everything will go as planned. You need to be flexible, and that's just in all life approaches. And I think it really boils down to accepting the fact that you truly have no control over anything except yourself. And really within yourself, it's your thoughts. So I think for the military, it taught me to really, control my understanding of my own capabilities and limitations, and understand that if some guy's telling me to show up at 5 o'clock in the morning, well, I can have two outcomes. I can be, super upset and mad that I got to show up at 5, or I can say, all right, why do I have to show up at 5? What's the meaning behind it? Understand it, accept it, and just kind of move forward. So, you go in as a teenager and you come out in your 30s, you kind of learn to modify your way of thinking to be flexible, and then understand that it's not a personal attack. There's nothing against you. It's part of that process or that step to get from point A to point B, or the objective, or to complete that mission. So flexibility is key, because not everything goes as you might want it or as it's supposed to be planned. But I also think when it doesn't go as planned, there's a deviation, if you will. That's actually the way it's supposed to go. That's the actual process. That's the actual adventure or journey. And the military really taught me that way.
Yeah, flexibility. I love that. And, that's one of the things that I really am a proponent of, is looking at life from the lens that everything's happening for us rather than to us, and even with this carbon monoxide poisoning, it's like, this is happening for me. My brain is not functioning 100%. It's teaching me to slow down and give myself grace. And it's like, okay, it's happening for me, and it's that lens you can choose in which you see adversity through. And I would say, I'm assuming just from your response, but the military is a great teacher of flexibility, and also, realizing more how to flow, with life's adversity. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Be the river. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
I think
if you're going to swim upstream or like swim downstream, not upstream. Yeah.
Yeah. Go with the flow, go with the flow. And I think it boils down. I'm a follower of Stoicism, the Stoics, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. And, I've taken a lot of those readings and try to, apply those to my lives on certain aspects. And I think it's given me a good, clear direction. And when you're younger, you do things and you do certain actions that don't really make a lot of sense, but only once you gain a little bit more knowledge, skills, and abilities into the future do you truly kind of understand, like, you get that light bulb moment, like, that's okay, that makes sense now. And, that's the representation of life is long,
Yeah, that's great. I haven't got too deep into Stoicism, but I'm curious to hear if you were pass along maybe one piece of advice or something that you have applied from Stoicism to your life that you could maybe share with the happy hustlers.
Yeah, I think that one thing is you can only really control your response. So if you get cut off in traffic and, you can sit there and blow up and give that person the finger and scream out your window, but you really don't have to do that. There's no need to do that. Maybe that person is, on their way to their hospital because one of their loved ones is injured or something's happened or they're late for something. But your response to an email, to a phone call, to a confrontation, to a pleasant meeting is the only true thing that you can really control. And that's a big line of Stoicism, is understanding that that is the one control you have. And when you give it to somebody else and you allow anger to come forward, or you allow frustration, or you allow different emotions to come forward, they have now gained control of your true response. So for me, it's just accepting that that's what I own. That's the only thing I truly own. And how I go about impacting people, how I go about responding to people can be shaped in a lot of different ways. I have more control than I think. Yeah. Sometimes we let those moments just take control of us. They control our emotions. And, we hyperfixate, we focus, we get stressed, we get anxiety because of those things. And I've just found a way to eliminate that just by, controlling their response.
Well said, brother. And that's the thing. Right when you react rather than respond, you give away your power. So when you respond with logic rather than emotion, you are in control. And one thing, that, and this is something we all work on, like no one's perfect. I'm sure Donny's close to much more than most because he's spent years cultivating it. But I'm just saying, in terms of controlling your emotional response versus a logical, response, it would be more so emotional reaction versus logical response. Choosing the logical response is how you retain that control and that homeostasis. And also this is applicable in business and in, your relationships with your family, Absolutely. With people on the street, this is just a choice on how to live life with that higher frequency. And it's a really great point. And, that's what I love about these conversations. Like, we didn't expect to go here, but it's such a valuable takeaway for the happy hustlers. You know what I mean? Like, I was all prepared to talk about primitive survival skills and all sorts of really cool stuff that's right in your wheelhouse, but this is awesome.
Well, I go ahead, sir.
No, all you, man.
Well, one of the things, so I have these 4 marks tattooed on me, and they are my primal, mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And those need to stay aligned. That's why it's a reminder on my hand. I work with my hands to keep them aligned. And part of that emotional well-being is understanding your emotions and how they can impact others, but more importantly, how they impact you. And we are that biggest enemy. We are that conundrum each day that people have to face. And I think for me, it's understanding when those four things are aligned. I don't want to say you're unstoppable, but you have an alignment to kind of go forward. There's nothing really impacting you in a negative way. Because, primal well-being, emotional, physical, and mental, like all of those things, that's who we are as a person. That's who we are as a people. And I think when we start to remove those or we don't acknowledge them, then we start to chip away at who we are. And that's when stress comes in, anxiety, poor choices, poor decisions, and life becomes short then in that case.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I love the word alignment. And I don't know if you know this, but like my whole framework is called the 10 alignments of being a happy hustler. And it makes up this acronym called soul mapping. And for me, I was so out of alignment early on in my entrepreneurial journey. All I was doing was focus on work and profit and success and ego and title and all the driver society deems important. Right. And then when I really realized, I'm so unfulfilled, I'm so unbalanced, and I'm just like not happy. I needed to make a big shift. And that's when I really started to focus on alignment, both personally and professionally. And I actually, I broke my life down into these 10 different areas. And the happy hustlers who've listened to the show before know these 10 alignments. If this is your first time, welcome. Awesome that you're here. I'm super grateful. And you picked a winner to come on with Donny because he's the man. But seriously, man, that's a really cool thing that those four dots on it's on your index finger, your tattoo. Is that right?
Yeah. The 4 marks. Yeah.
4 marks.
I talk about it a lot. Yeah. I talk about it. People are always asking what it is. And I'm like, it's just a reminder to stay aligned. And sometimes it's okay to get out of alignment, but you have to know how to bring yourself back in. And that's the key,
Yeah. And if you were maybe going to bestow some wisdom on people who may be out of alignment right now, I'm gonna go there. What would you say to those people who are out of alignment?
Well, I think the first thing is just accepting that you are, and that's okay. Everyone, it happens to everyone. So the denial to think, oh man, when we have that inner gift, it's our intuition. And when we ignore it, we will remain out of alignment. And so it's the acknowledgement that something is off. I'm no longer aligned with my mental, physical, emotional, and primal well-being. And then it's seeking out different knowledge, skills, and abilities to realign yourself into those 4 marks, if you will. So I think, for like a primal alignment, it can play a lot of different ways. For me, my primal alignment might be different than yours or somebody else's, but something as simple as going out on a hike, taking your shoes off and walking through the grass, learning about a couple plants that maybe you could forage on, understanding, how nature works, acknowledging sunsets and sunrises. It's those natural things that we sometimes ignore. We might see it, we might hear it, we might smell it, but we typically ignore it. Most people do. And for me to align myself primally, like my method is to go back out and live in my caves, put on my loincloth and buckskin clothes, and I eat wild. And, there's a whole kind of connection to the landscape. And for me, that is my primal alignment. But sometimes when I have my kids and I have to be in like dad mode, it's about breaking stone and working hides. I find things to do in all environments that can align my primal alignment.
So cool, man. And it's so awesome to hear the duality of your life. You'll be rocking a loincloth one day, and then in the carpool line the next day picking the kids up. That's awesome.
That's 100%. Yeah. That's good.
Well, but that's balance, and that's what it takes to stay in alignment, is balance of these two, both your primal sense and, your functioning member of society sense. It's like,
for sure.
It's really cool to hear that. And I do want to kind of transition more into some of these, primitive survival skills and the mindset required to be successful and by successful, I mean thriving, not just surviving. You know, it's like,
yeah.
what would you say to someone who is interested in, you know, like actually getting primal and experiencing the great outdoors as like a good first step? And then maybe, you know, we can walk through a little bit of like, when you're out in the wilderness, some of those, like, what do you search out first? Is it water? Is it shelter? Is it fire? Kind of go through that process, if you would, for someone who's just starting out into the primal sense and wants to become more of a thriver, not a survivor.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think first off, understanding the difference between surviving and thriving. And I think surviving is just getting by. You are just getting by with the basics, whether that's food, fire, water, shelter, so on and so forth. And thriving allows a person to be more creative, to have a little bit more, you know, if you will, kind of creature comforts, whether it's a warm blanket or a warm animal hide. So abundance of food, joy, humor, those sort of things. And we can all see those kind of transitions, even our daily lives living in a modern world. What is surviving and then what is thriving? If you're working, 65 hours a week, you're just truly surviving if you're not getting an opportunity to go home and read a book or catch a movie or to do something you enjoy. So it can translate a lot of different ways. For me, a lot of my adventures, around the world have been pretty unique, but they've been at my own, design, if you will. And it really comes down to seeking out challenges and then seeking out opportunities. And I recommend for people that are trying to get out there, you don't need a plan. Eliminate the plan from your day, because everyone's day is structured around a plan. So, and these are all in my books, Scavenger and EARTHROAMER, where I say the first thing you need to do is go out in the bush, the wilds, with no plan. I'm not saying don't tell anyone you're going, but say I'm going to go to a trailhead and I'm just going to walk. And that dovetails perfectly into that next little phase, which is curiosity. We are curiosity led. And sometimes when we eliminate our curiosity, we don't grow. I like to use the term grow where you're planted, but you're no longer growing. We are a very curious people. We've traveled all around this world. We've followed animals across ice bridges, created fire and all sorts of weaponry because of our curiosities and our necessities. So for people to be out in the bush, you have to be curious. If you hear something, if you see something, if you smell something, allow your inner 10-year-old to come alive and go see what it is. Figure out what that is, because that will lead you to new places. When we structure our outdoor adventures to a plan, we stick to the trail. We only walk to the trail. We walk to the waterfall at the end. We look at the waterfall, and that's it. Be curious and avoid the trails, if you will, because the trails have already been walked. They've been beaten down, and you know exactly where it's going. So it's be curious, avoid the plans, and when you're out there, just go out there as a child. Be there in that kind of virgin form of, what is this? What is this? If you see a cool flower, pick it up. Take a photo of it. If you see something out there that's totally unknown, try to figure out what it is. What could I, what does this do? You can drive down a city street and see 1,000 things and know exactly what they are. But we are so disconnected that when we walk back out in the bush, we see a million plants, animal sounds, and all these different things, and we have no idea what they're for. So start creating that log, if you will, of photos or sketches, and start kind of taking that information in and processing it out. But be curious, man. You got to be curious.
Yeah. Wow. And that's really just a great way to live life, with that curiosity and that creativity, because, I know the happy hustlers out there, a lot of them are out there, as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. And, in order to be successful in any industry, you need to be curious, and you also need to be creative, making sure that you're solving problems for people who, maybe don't even know their problems. You need to be creative to solve that problem. And then there's always like another way. So when the curiosity, there's a way to do it. Like there's a trail in the wilderness where you could take a trailhead to a lake, but there's also another way to get there that has never really been walked. And you could find that path. And I just think that's something I need to, this is a great reminder for me, Donny, because when I go in the wilderness, if I go on horseback, typically we're taking trails. If I go hiking, I'll go
Sure.
off trail a little bit, but I always try to respect nature and like not be putting foot traffic all over. But the truth is, that's when the magic happens, when you just get off the beaten path, and then you can
Amen.
really start to just kind of live with that childlike wonder. And I just think that's a really great, it's a great metaphor, like that childlike wonder of, okay, how can I get back to the joy? What really lit me up as a kid? What was the questions I was asking myself? And I think coming back to just questions are a really great way to live your life. One thing I think a lot of people would probably hear you say and feel a little anxiety about is you don't need a plan, and I just think that's so great. Like, that's such great advice, because we are all living by our calendars. We're living by our devices, and there's plans for this and everything's structured. And here you are saying you don't need a plan. And I'm just curious, can you expand upon that? Like, give us your take when you do get in the woods. Eventually you're going to need to get the order of things in order to thrive. But without having a structured plan, how do you go about setting up your shelter or making fire? Or is there an order of operations that you loosely follow?
Yeah. Well, I want to caveat right now. Like, some of this comes with knowledge, skills, and abilities. 3 uniquely different things, because you know, and we can go into that in a little bit. But for me, when I walk into the woods, I don't have a plan, and the reason being is, I believe in my knowledge, skills, and abilities that when things present themselves as opportunities, or when a different curiosity factor is sparked, I'm going to embrace those. So if I see something in the difference that looks like a great cave to sleep in, I'm going to go there. If I come across a field full of wild greens, that's a snack, that's a meal. So there's an acceptance that nature provides all, but with that comes certain knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if folks are going out and they've got, let's say it's their Saturday, and they've already got so many hours planned out because they're going to go for drinks, they're going to try and do a business call, whatever the case may be. It's eliminating that and saying, all right, I know I have 4 hours today. That's free time. I'm just going to go walk in the woods. Whatever happens, happens. And, I'm going to stick to a trail, or I'm going to walk for 1 hour, and then I'm going to go explore for 100 yards, But that confidence, that ability comes with the knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if you've never gone on a hike, I would probably recommend sticking close to a trail, but, there's nothing wrong with popping off the trail, exploring, see what's over and around the cliff, because half of my adventures have only been curiosity led, where I've found caves, I've found, animal carcasses taken down by mountain lions that turned into a meal, hidden springs and waterfalls. And the last time I was in Iceland, I asked a guy at a gas station, I said, where can I go where there will be nobody else? And he pointed to like these mountain ranges. And I said, perfect. I drove to the base, I parked, and I just walked. And the only thing that caught my eye in the distance was this lone plume of geyser smoke coming out. And I walked for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and behold, I was in the middle of a completely isolated geyser. There was no signs, there was no people. Before you know it, I was butt naked in this geyser, in this stream, and just enjoying life. And I was like, this is what it's about. I could have asked that same gas station guy, hey, what's the best geyser to go to? And I could have drove there. Probably would have been beautiful. Probably would have been 100 people, 40 cars, X, Y, and Z. But just that idea of saying, where can I go where there's nobody else? Where can I be curious? Where can I be wild? And it led to a pretty amazing place.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, man. And, nothing like thermal water either. Like just, hot, just springs that coming from the ground, and you're just butt naked. Those are the best kind of hot springs, in my opinion, Yeah. And there's some good ones. I know you're in Colorado, and I'm in Montana, and there's some good ones right around where we're at. I love hot springs searching myself. Now, I do want to just ask a little bit about like some of these experiences in the woods that you've had. I know you had a crazy run-in with the bear that was like licking your toes or something. Tell us this story, because this is crazy.
Yeah. So I was out in the bush for a good chunk of change, and I have a series of caves that I live in all throughout the state. And typically I travel from cave to cave to cave. They have different resources, wild greens and fish in a stream nearby or a fresh spring. But there's this one cave that I frequented pretty often, and I'd hunkered down for that night. And typically, if it's warm, I don't make a fire. There's no need to for my personal. You just don't need it. So I was out there, and I was wrapped up in a elk hide, and I was sleeping in a giant grass bed. I make these grass beds out of sticks and branches and throw all this grass in there and crawl in for the night. And maybe it had to have been after midnight. I never keep a watch, but I just felt this. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty enjoyable for a few seconds. This tongue working his way through my toes, and I was kind of woken up by it. And when I came to, the moon was out, and there was some good loom, and I could just see this bear with his snout to my toes, with his tongue going in and out. And I let out like a big, oh my God, scream. He let out this big moaning scream, and he took off out of the cave. I lit a fire, stayed up for the entire rest of the night. And it was just one of those things where, and it was a juvenile bear. It wasn't it was a black bear, nothing too crazy, but it was just enough to be like, all right, you're not alone. Yeah. You need to get deeper into the pattern of life of this environment. And, one hell of an experience.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
My feet are pretty bad sometimes.
Hey, you got a free pedicure out the deal. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's such a cool story, man. And I've come across black bear in the wilderness, come across grizzly bears, mountain lion. I've been charged by a bull moose. Like when you're out in the wilderness, that's the real deal, and that's why I like it, is because we're not the top of the food chain, and you have that fear that is also serving you and your intuition. Like, not necessarily fear. I don't know. Would you say it's fear, or would you just say being aware, or how do you look at it when it comes to like wilderness safety?
Yeah, so I don't personally believe in fear. I always think fear is a projection of unknowns, things that haven't even happened yet. So when we're fearful, we're fearing of things that haven't happened. But I always call it the pattern of life. And there's a pattern of life in every environment, the business world, the local, grocery store, to the natural world. And typically when people go into the bush, they don't acknowledge that pattern of life. They don't know what things are growing, what birds are singing, what the wind, the weather, all these things mean. And they close off that pattern of life. And that's when they find themselves in trouble, in situations, being charged by, a moose. I've been charged by moose, but it's one of those things. So when you are part of the pattern of life in a natural environment, you understand, hey, you know what? This could be the rut right now for moose. So they're extra edgy. All the mushrooms could be popping. So there's a lot more foraging animals, which leads to a lot more, birds of prey. So, there's a lot of things that happen in that pattern of life. And when you can become part of the pattern of life, you live it, you breathe it, you consume it, then not only are you thriving, but then you understand everything a little bit more on what's going on. You hear things, you sense things, you are part of that heartbeat of that natural place, because the natural world, it won't lie to you. It won't cheat on you. It won't steal from you. It will ask nothing of you. You can either be part of it or you can be consumed by it, really. But that's really what that pattern of life is. And there's a pattern of life of everything. And if we can find ourselves in that pattern of life in any environment, then you're truly thriving within it.
Wow. That was some fire, man. I love that. I hope everyone goes back and just listens to Donny there, because I mean, that's the thing. There's a pattern of life, and and fear is just a projection of the unknown. And that's why I think a lot of people don't embark into the wilderness, is for that projection of the unknown. They are timid because they don't know what they don't know. And once you get out there and you just accept and flow and as we talked about, swim with the river's current rather than against it, it's a different way to live. And, I'm just kind of curious, have you had any like run-ins with, or any like experiences? I'm sure you have, but like any that are memorable in terms of like, wow, I could not make it out of this situation. I might be a goner. Is there anything that comes to mind in terms of like where you kind of push the limit a little bit and where, other than your time on alone?
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to share that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all of those different events, one thing that when I was maybe 14, I climbed Mount Rainier with my father and the Whitaker brothers who have climbed Everest, Skip Yowell, and then Nawang Gambu, who was Lap Singh's Sherpa, his grandson. And this was all before Rainier mountaineering and all that sort of stuff was a thing. But the things that were of concern to me there were hidden snow crevasses. Because you just see a blanket of white snow. And as we were approaching these different crevasses, there was a couple people up front kind of pinpointing them. But it was the experience of seeing some of the snow give way on my left or right flank that kind of made me think, is this going to travel underneath me? Because it's just basically, it's pure death. You can't climb out of that. Yeah, if there's rescue, that's an option. But that's one of those experiences where it's like, whew. The carpet could be pulled right off from under my feet and, down I go.
Yeah.
And, that sort of stuff. And then sometimes with water, I mean, I'm a great swimmer, but, I was swimming in the Amazon River on this last Discovery Channel show. And you hear all these stories about the Amazon River, piranhas and anacondas. So as I jumped from this ferry boat and I was swimming to the shore, I was just kind of swimming and like I could feel things touching my legs. I didn't know if they were piranha, if it was leaves or what exactly it was. But it was just one of those things that's like, all right, let's swim a little faster, but not too fast. You don't want to look like a struggling animal. But it's those sort of things that are, the end state was there was no, I didn't die or I wasn't eaten by piranhas, but it's those sort of little things that I think take a person and really put them in that environment. Like you are now living in it. And whether it comes in the form of just being nudged by an alligator or catching some form of dysentery on a TV show and spending multiple days throwing up and losing it out the backside. I mean, all of those things, I personally believe they're friggin' awesome. I mean, you can't get upset at those things. You can, like I said, you can only really control your response to it. But I think for me, like those are all just awesome opportunities that, was it a bunch of piranhas maybe trying to take a nibble and test the flavor? Maybe. I don't know. I made it to the shore. I walked 10 feet into the Amazon jungle and saw a sloth up in a tree. And I was like, this is awesome. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a good time.
That's so cool, man. And I know right now you have a show called Mud, Sweat, and Beards, maybe beers too, but beers. Off camera. Yeah, beards. Tell people where they can go to check out this show and really what it's all about.
Yeah. So it's Mud, Sweat, and Beards. It aired last month on USA Network, so May. But you can check it out on Amazon Prime. I believe it's on Hulu, and then it should be going to Peacock streaming. And it's a show about myself and one other individual, Ray Livingston. We were both on Alone season 6 together. And Ray is very much a modern survivalist. He likes his gadgets and his stuff, and I'm more of a primitive sort of person, if you will. And it's the show is about us going to these unique locations for 10 days and enjoying what living in the bush can be. A lot of survival TV is about drama and hardship and all this sort of stuff that doesn't really exist. And I believe it turns a lot of people off to some of the beautiful experiences that you can have in the outdoors. And for Ray and I, our objective was to, yes, we were going to experience those, but also to show some of the joy, some of the humor, some of the fun, some of the great emotional experiences that you can have from, building 2 reed boats and going bow fishing for alligator gar in a Louisiana swamp.
That's so
It's
cool.
those sort of things. Yeah, we just wanted to really show people that, you know, the outdoors can be a scary place, but with knowledge, skills, and abilities comes, you know, an acceptance and a thriving ability that you can become part of that pattern of life. And our objective was to show people, like, it's not all doom and gloom. It's not being naked in the woods. Yes, very, very unlikely for you to be alone in the woods. It can happen, but like, it's fun. Just
Mm-hmm.
the natural world is a fun place. We all come from the natural world, so we should find those points when we can return to it, because eventually you will.
Yeah. Hey, amen to that. And guys, if you want to check that out, you know, you can check it out on the sites that he said. We'll link it all up in the show notes, but also you can go to donnydust.com and there you can also get Donny's books too. Talk to us about your books, because I'm definitely going to be reading them. But
Right
talk
on.
to us like, yeah, man, I'm stoked. I'm curious, you know, for the happy hustlers, like, what would someone out there who is interested, what would they retain from reading your books?
Yeah, I think you know, both books are different in different ways, I guess you could say. But I think for the happy hustlers out there, I think they would pick up Scavenger, and they would have a little bit of clarity of thought and action kind of going into their next minute. The idea behind it is to accept the past, accept the future, accept a death, and knowing those things, knowing that one day you will die, we all will. Don't worry about what happens next. Worry about what's happening to you right now, because that's what matters. Like your loved ones, your personal health, your mental, physical, emotional, primal well-being, your influence on others. And Scavenger was written in a cave after I had my heart attack. So I went out to a cave with a moleskin notebook, wrote down all these things, went back, transcribed it onto a computer, and I set out with a goal to make a book that was 100 pages. The reason being, and this is maybe some, you know, marketing and entrepreneur sort of stuff, but today's consumption of digital media is relatively short compared to, you know, certain things. So like a podcast is different in my personal opinion, but a lot of YouTube videos, TikTok, stories on Instagram, they're relatively short. So I wanted to create a book that was short, that somebody could pick up in one day, read it, and then hand it over to somebody else. And so I said, you're going to take 100 pages, create a book, get the information out, the kind of bottom line up front, allow them to consume it, and then sit on it. And then 99% of the people go back and read it again and get the information out there. And the information is really focused on how I went through my recovery process after a heart attack. Things like grounding and eating wild and earth roaming, which dovetails into my second book, and you know, living within nature and that kind of primal connection. And Earth Roamer was a chapter in Scavenger, and a lot of people wanted to know more about that. And that's just my own personal approach and philosophies into going into the outdoors, like not having a plan. Nature provides all. Creativity is your number one survival skill, and applying these things in your own personal lives as well as your adventures into the backcountry and the bush.
Wow. Love it. I mean, there you have it, guys. Scavenger and EarthRoamer, two must reads. You go to donnydust.com, get those books. And, you know, I do want to just kind of touch on like your diet. If it's, you know, if it's one palette or another, or if it's more just free flowing, what does a typical day in Donny Dust diet look like?
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's really based on the environment. You know, if I'm out in the bush, there's not a lot of things consumed. If it's hunting seasons, fishing seasons, I still stick to all state rules and regulations just for ethical harvest. And that's what we should be doing. A lot of fish and a lot of meats when I'm out in the bush. And then when I'm in like dad mode, I mean, I make my boy a fruit smoothie every morning with collagen and some, you know, dried liver. And, you know, I consume the same, but I eat clean. You know, as a heart attack, you know, survivor and someone who focuses on health, I eat a lot of fruits. I eat a lot of meats, and I don't do a lot of processed foods, so on and so forth. It's just not as good for you. However, if my girlfriend and I are down in Vecca's Island or Belize or someplace like that, and there's a good meal, we're going to eat a good meal, because that's also enjoying, that's what you do around a good meal. You commune with others, you connect, you love, you emote. And I think food can do that sometimes. So food is a fuel, and really based on the environment. So if I'm out in the bush, I need fuel to operate and stay functioning. If I'm on a date with my, girlfriend, and we're somewhere, that food is the fuel for our abilities to connect and commune and have a conversation. And when I'm in dad mode, it's that fuel to keep my kids running and to make sure that they're healthy, as well as to keep me kind of going throughout the day. So food is fuel.
Yeah, I love it. I think, food is 100% fuel, and it's also medicine too, and it's like, you need to make sure that you're putting good medicine in your body. And I think we have lost touch, a lot of society, especially Americans. We eat gluttonously, if that's even a word, but like we have, just this like over consuming mentality. And even when we're not hungry, we eat. And it's just, I think that's why we have, 70% of the population obese, and it's like, when you get back to just eating natural, raw, healthy foods and start to eliminate the processed crap and the GMOs and all the, sugars, and it's a better way to live. It's a lot cleaner. And I'm definitely not perfect. Yeah. My guilty pleasure is I love a good pastry, but that's neither here nor there. I just say,
nothing wrong with it. But I think the flip side to like diet and eating healthy is also a good fast. I talk about it quite a bit in my first book, Scavengers. Fasting is a huge thing, whether it's a 40-hour fast or a 2-week fast, or sometimes I refer to it as a functional fast, where you are doing things. And it typically happens to me in the bush, where I'm out in the bush and my focus isn't food. It's very easy to eliminate that hunger, that desire for food, because I'm focusing on, fire or finding water or really crafting the right place to sleep that night. So that functional fast fits into the, how does it function within your day? Well, if it's not a requirement, then it's eliminated. But, anything beyond, like I'd say a 40-hour fast or, a week-long fast, I recommend people get some sound advice and practices into actually how to go about doing that. And I rely on a Huna priest out in West Creek, Colorado, named Lono, and he's guided me on a couple long-term fasts with different resources and cold plunges and hot water baths and all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty awesome.
Wow. What was the longest fast you've ever done? I'm just curious.
Just a 2-weeker. Just a
2-weeker. Nope. That's ridiculous.
yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah. But that's also consuming, water. And then part of that process is a honey water. So it's diluted honey and a little water with a little lemon. It's still taking in, hydration
calories.
Forms. Yeah. And a little bit. And but no, nothing. And I've done, straight carnivore diet where there's, you're just eating meats, and, doctors always recommend, as a heart attack patient, you shouldn't be doing those things. And I say, well, I think the purest form of knowing your body is to experience and really understand the fuels that are going in. And if I'm only eating meat for, the next 60 days, or if I'm only eating fruit for the next 60 days, I know how my body will respond. It's the same thing when someone runs a marathon, that you should never run a marathon one time before your marathon. You should run several marathons leading up to your marathon. So, at mile 24, you're not going to die. You've only got a couple more miles. So you're going to be okay. So it's that same sort of thing with food, understanding how your body is going to respond and react. Because even when you head out in the bush, and let's say I'm going out for a long adventure, I'll eliminate a lot of things in my diet leading up, because I know it doesn't exist out there. It's typically tubers, greens, and meats, whether it's fish or flesh.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Super interesting, man. And, I've really enjoyed our convo, and I want to ask you some of our traditional happy hustle questions, and then put you through the rapid fire round, and then we'll wrap this interview up. But these are, something I like to call happy hustle hacks, will you? And this is a tip, a tool, a tactic, something in each discipline that maybe you do that's a little unique that maybe we can share with the happy hustlers. And, we talked a lot about health and diet, but I'm curious, do you have, a happy hustle hack in regards to health, maybe something you do to stay physically fit or something that you could share with the happy hustlers?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I do to stay physically fit is I stay out of gyms. I find gyms to be overcrowded, smelly. It's a show. And I say you should go out and perform aspects of functional fitness. And, and it typically resembles your pattern of life. For me, lifting rocks and logs and things like that, that is my form of lifting weights. Hiking at, 10,000 to 14,000 feet, that is my cardio. And all those things mirror what I do in a routine kind of day, if you will. So I think when it comes down to fitness, everyone has to find their personal acceptance first. If they know something that they're doing is bad for them, like you know that already, don't do it. Like find that way to get over it and then try to alter that. And that really comes with, lifestyle and diet and, creating habits and good routines to eliminate those negative things. But I think when it comes to that hardcore physical fitness, whether it's muscles or stamina or endurance, it's a good form of functional fitness. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, man. Well, and you're a testament to it. If you're just listening, I highly recommend going on YouTube, check out our YouTube channel, Carry Jack, the Happy Hustler, and look at Donny because he's jacked and, he's not going to gym. So there's proof to the pudding right there, y'all.
If you're a flintknapper, you lift a lot of heavy rocks and a lot of logs all the time. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, and that's what our ancestors have done for thousands of years. And, it worked out just fine. I'm a big proponent of functional fitness as well. Like one of my goals is to always stay ninja, being a martial artist growing up. I always want to be able to throw a high kick, even when I'm 85, still I want to be able to throw that high kick. And, that's just one of my goals.
Awesome.
And not even a goal. I know you're not big goal, but that's like one of my decisions that I've made. It's like, it's a decision. So it's happening.
But the best part about that is you'll remember every time you try to make that kick and you do it, you won't even think about that end. You're just like, I can do it. I can still do it. I can still do it. That's the key.
Yeah. There's no end. Yeah.
No end.
Exactly. That's right. Let's talk about money. I see money as a tool, as a frequency, it's an energy. I'm curious, do you have a happy hustle hack in regards to money? Maybe something, that you do to save or invest or spend wisely? I'm sure you have a little different mindset on this because it's not, it's not the motive, I would imagine, as per your lifestyle, but do you have a happy hustle hack in regards to money that you could share with the happy hustlers?
Yeah, I think for me personally, my actions with money kind of fall in a couple different realms. One with my personal business, Paleo Tracks Survival. I use that. That is my main means of making funds, if you will, running classes and doing different things within that. When it comes to money, I'm not the biggest believer in saving it all. I save with a specific intent. Specifically, I have two sons. One's turning 16, one's 13. So I save for them, just as my parents had saved for me, so on and so forth. But I always focus and reinvest my money into me, and I reinvest my money into personal experiences and adventures. I don't have a 62-inch flat screen. I have the same truck I've been running for years. So I want to take the money that I make and I want to put it into new opportunities and experiences that are going to give me peace and joy. Problem with that is everybody can justify their peace and joy. Maybe they do want that 68-inch flat screen. So for me, it's always about, I want to go to a place, I want to experience something. And when the opportunity is there, it's not like, I want to save my pennies and do this. No, if it's right there, I purchase it, that trip, and we're going. Or get a hold of my girlfriend, 2 weekends ago, she sent me a text and was like, hey, let's go to Panama. And I was like, sounds good. That was it. You know what I mean?
Love it.
Why, what else do you need? So it's that sort of mindset, but that also comes with the ability to, have some money. So between, books and TV shows and different things like that, you can acquire a certain amount of wealth, but I never look at, the bank account and say, all right, I've only got this, I need to do this. If you can manage your life and know what you're putting your money into, the superficial things like, going out to eat 5 nights a week, and buying these, clothes. I'm a big Goodwill shopper because, again, my pattern of life is out in the bush. I'm going to tear, I'm going to tear things up a little bit more. But it's understanding, where is my money going, and kind of breaking it down and saying, all right, do I really need these things? Do I really not need these things? For me, it's about investing in myself and then also investing in my business.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, it's a really great way to live. Just and I think here's the thing, that a lot of people overestimate the number they actually need for the lifestyle that they are desiring to live, and really, somewhere along the line, this $1 million mark came into everyone's head, but really you don't need that. Like most people, I heard this statistic, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but most people who are under the 75K a year threshold, once you reach that 75K a year threshold of money, like money after taxes, everything, like you've netted 75K, that actually your happiness is no longer correlated to your income, which I thought was very interesting. Like your happiness, like once you have your basic needs met, roof over your head, food in the fridge, a vehicle to drive, and you reach that threshold, and you find happiness elsewhere, and it's not directly correlated with money. And I just think it's really cool to hear you, Donny, talk about like experiences and opportunities over materialistic items. And I'm very similar, like in that sense. However, I can see myself more so in the last couple of years of my business comparing myself to other entrepreneurs. And I really do my best to not compare and despair, and rather just focus on my own life and my own track. And I just think that's the best way to live, is just focus on what brings you joy, what's the number that's needed. And then also look at money as a tool, because once you are making more money, that means you're serving more people. And for me, it's all about, service over self, helping others. When you're, doing your Paleo Tracks Survival classes, like you are teaching people valuable life skills. And in exchange, there's a transaction of value, right?
Absolutely.
They're getting experience, you're getting money. And so I just think it's a really cool way to go about life, knowing, that, hey, experiences and opportunities are the things that you're going to look back on in your deathbed and you're going to want more of, not more money.
Absolutely.
Right?
Nail on the head, my friend. Nail on the head. That's perfect.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about spirituality too. I'm curious, do you have a spiritual practice, or, for me, like I'm very spiritual. I'm not necessarily religious. My dad is Catholic. My mom's Jewish. I'm kind of like this religious mutt, but I'm big into faith. I pray every day, but I believe in a higher power. And I'm just curious, do you have a happy hustle hack in this arena, this spiritual arena, that you could share with the happy hustlers?
Yeah, I think I am mentally stimulated by spirituality and religion, but I'm not emotionally connected to it. I think, my family, they grew up Catholic and all these, that whole kind of realm, if you will. And I think for me, I kind of started to dive out of that kind of world. I just didn't really find that connection, I think, with my time overseas and some of my experiences. There was a lot of questions I had that I couldn't necessarily get answered. And instead of trying to figure out on why those things were happening, whether it was, in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia, I started to focus on what can I actually influence in those cases. And that was the human dynamic, the people. So not too religious. When it comes to spirituality, I think for me, it kind of ties into kind of more of a personal connection, like my emotional feelings in certain situations and environments. Could I call it spirituality? Somebody else could, but for me personally, I don't do a lot of praying. I just do a lot of more like listening, if you will. I kind of listen to what's going on instead of asking for this or hoping for this. I kind of try and listen and try to be more in tune with just the world around me in that respect. I love it, man. I love spirituality and religion. I think it's done some amazing things. It's done some hurtful things, but it's all man's doing in a certain way and form. I'm ironically quite a student of religions. I think, I've read the Quran, the Bible, the Torah.
Wow.
I've read the Book of Mormon, because I mean, people are guided and driven by those things. So I think to understand people, you should know where some of their influences come from to better understand who they are. Not use it as a tool against them, but more or less, how can I connect with this person? How can we take two different worlds and align them together? That's where it comes from.
Wow. Man, good for you. You are one wise, interesting soul, Donny. I'll tell you, you've read all those books. That is impressive. I mean, like
over time.
Yeah, but that's awesome, man. I mean, and it really is. It's all about listening, and it's all about empathizing with others. And when you can understand someone's spiritual practices or their religion deeper, you can understand, their drivers and what makes them tick. And I just think that's such a cool approach, man. So kudos to you for that. Now, I do want to dive into the rapid fire round. And this is, essentially where I just ask you random questions and you answer honestly, first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Favorite food? Go.
I like elk.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Favorite movie?
Braveheart.
Oh, yeah. Favorite book?
Yeah. I like Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
Nice. Favorite workout? And we could say functional fitness training.
Yeah. I say functional fitness. Anything that's outside. Anything outside.
Yeah. Nice. What's your spirit animal?
Have to be a bear.
Oh, yeah. Best
Definitely
business advice?
Eliminate the passion and accept that you have to start. Passion won't get you to the very end. You have to start with square one. Like, you can have the passion, but passion isn't always going to bring you where you need. You have to start. Got to find a starting point and go. Even if you have all the passion in the world, passion alone won't get you to the end. You got to have a starting point. Which might go kind of against some of your philosophies, because passion is important, but I always feel like passion comes later a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an interesting take, and maybe we can explore that after the rapid fire round. But yeah, that's awesome. 3 things you're most grateful for?
My 2 sons and a heart that's still functioning.
Awesome. That's great. And if you had one billboard for the world to see with your last piece of content on it, what is that billboard going to read?
Oh, man. That one billboard, the last piece of content or advice. Maybe it would just be life is long. Don't forget that. And then ...
That's great, man. I love that. Donny, you crushed that rapid fire round, brother. And I just want to take a moment, man, to acknowledge you for just sharing your love and your light and your wisdom with myself and the Happy Hustlers, and really just for showing up as your unapologetic self, the true caveman, letting yourself be free and wild, and inspiring others to get outside in nature and just connect to our beautiful planet. And by the way, protect it in the process, because this is a natural resource that is being, unfortunately decimated by many, unethical practices. And I think people like you who spark the curiosity and the creativity to get out in nature are really doing the planet a major justice. So I just acknowledge you, brother, for all that.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly. It's been an honor and a privilege. And to all the Happy Hustlers out there, he's got a good thing going. Keep listening, because I'm listening and I'm like, okay, this is the stuff that shapes the world. So good on you, man.
Thank you, brother. I received that. And, I'm just curious if you have any final words before I ask you the last question. And, maybe if you can go ahead and just drop a couple social media links and maybe where you want people to go to find out more about you as well.
Yeah, I think just for everyone that's listening out there, that, the natural world is the place we all come from. And it's important for us to return to it as many times as we can. There's good connection. It will never lie. It will never cheat. It will never steal. It's a place where it could seem a little foreign and a little different, but with time, knowledge, skills, and abilities, it can become part of your normal pattern of life. And, for more words of wisdom from Donny, but yeah, I'm on all social media stuff. Yeah, I know the Caveman's got a lot of social media, but if you go on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, even just look up Donny Dust. I'm always making something and trying to, promote just a life of creativity and curiosity where you don't have to do crazy dances or, try and push somebody else's water bottle. You can go on there as a 42-year-old man and make a Aztec sword or a stone point and have, millions of followers that seem to find it interesting. So there is a need for it out there. People are proving that there is a want to reconnect, and I'll happily show you how to reconnect. So
that's so awesome, man. And like, for those of you who haven't followed Donny, you really owe it to yourself, because it's definitely one of the most entertaining and educational accounts on the internet. And you have so millions and millions of followers. And it's like, specifically on TikTok, man, I was so impressed by your videos. Yeah. Like people ask you, hey, can you make a kunai? And he's like, yup. And he just makes a kunai out of a stone tool. It's just so awesome. I got like hooked in before this interview, just like watching all your videos. It's awesome. So yeah, check it out, guys. Donny Dust and Donny, man, this has been such an awesome conversation. You guys check them out at donnydust.com too to pick up those books, the EARTHROAMER and Scavenger. And Donny, man, I just want to ask you the last question, which is, what does happy hustling mean to you?
I think happy hustling means, it can mean a lot of different things, but I think for me, it's just knowing that if you're not doing the things that make you happy in your life, then you're going down the wrong path. Like eliminate the things that bring you no value and instill and reinforce the things that do bring you value. And yeah, I think if you're a happy hustler, you enjoy your life, you enjoy everything that comes around you, and you embrace people in a positive way. So for sure.
Mic drop. Donny Dust, y'all. That was awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for watching and listening, y'all. We are out. Peace and love, everyone.